Welcome to the One Gang Worldwide podcast, your ultimate ride into the world of motorcycles. Visit cyclesworldwide.com where we offer a completely free marketplace for everything motorcycles. Join our One Gang community where you can connect, share info, and swap stories with riders from all over the world. Join for free at cyclesworldwide.com and be a part of the One Gang community right now. On today's episode of the One Gang Worldwide podcast, we're tapping into the pulse of motorcycle media with Rob Brooks, the driving force behind Road Dirt. In this episode, Rob shares his insights on the latest trends in the motorcycle industry, the evolution of motorcycle journalism, and the stories that connect riders across the globe. So gear up for an in-depth look at the motorcycle world through the lens of a seasoned journalist, Rob Brooks, right here on the One Gang podcast.
No. And just sitting there with a for sale sign at the end of this driveway. And something just stirred inside of me. I would stop on the way home and just go gawk at this piece of motorcycle art, I considered it, in this guy's driveway.
So today on the One Gang podcast, we welcome Rob Brooks from Road Dirt Motorcycle Media. We're excited to have you, man. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you. Appreciate the invitation. Look forward to chatting with you guys.
Yeah, thanks, Rob. Thanks for coming on. We've been looking forward to this one, man. Picking that brain of yours. So, hey, I guess hey, you got a lot of info in there, man. So, I guess we'll start it off is how you grew up, where you grew up, how you got into the motorcycle world. Tell us a little bit about your upbringing and where it all started.
I blame my father. It's his fault. Growing up, he grew up in the 1950s. He was one of those. I could send you pictures. He was one that, if you remember the old TV comedy series Happy Days, they could have patterned the Fonzie character after my dad. I am not exaggerating.
Nice.
He had the leather jacket, big old coif pompadour hair, usually a cigarette pack rolled up in in his t-shirt, and he rode a chopped and bobbed Triumph Tiger 500 that was just a piece of work.
That's Fonzie to the T.
What's that?
That's Fonzie to the T.
I'm telling you, man, even down to the Triumph. And he married my mom, and then, he was in the Air Force and then the airlines. And I just remember growing up, we moved to Miami, Florida with the airlines, and then moved to Georgia, which is where we are. We're outside the Atlanta area. I'm up in northeast Atlanta, but I grew up on the south side of Atlanta. And I just remember we grew up, with miles of woods behind us. And my father always had one, sometimes two Triumphs in the garage that he rode, that he was working on, and usually enough extra parts hanging on pegs all around that garage to build a third one. I mean, it was nuts, and of course we had mini bikes and dirt bikes growing up. I mean, 1970s, that was just, motorcycles were just a part of just about every family, with dirt bikes and little trail 70s and 90s and Yamaha YZ80s. So because of our dad.
What was the first bike you got on?
First one I ever got on, my cousin actually had a little Coleman Polestar. You remember those little mini bikes?
Oh, yeah.
You turn the carburetor underneath your seat, and then you just yank it until it fired up. And we'd take off on that thing blasting through the woods. And our dad eventually bought us little mini bikes. We had a little a YZ80 and I think a Suzuki 125 some years after that. But
those YZ, those two-stroke YZ80s were just
nuts.
I love those bikes.
Yeah,
No
I mean,
doubt.
that thing was a freaking animal for, a little two-stroke fire-breathing dragon for these kids that were all three of us under 12 years old, little wiggly monsters. And
that's fun.
so that was really my exposure. And yet my dad, by the time I got to be like 15 or 16 years old, I for some years I had been eyeballing that 1972 Triumph 650 that he had in there. It wasn't a Bonneville. It was the TR1, I think is what it was called, but it was a 650, I think. 1971 or 72. Anyway, he had a 68 Bonneville before that. I just always remember eyeballing these pristine, beautiful Triumph motorcycles sitting in the back corner of the garage. And when I got about 15 or 16 years old, he taught me how to shift, how to clutch and shift them. Of course, on those ones, the shifting and the clutching was on opposite sides than universal
Opposite
standard
sides.
now.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah, it was on opposite sides. And he never let me really, go like ride it to high school and things like that. But he allowed me to ride it, around our roads and streets out in the country where we lived. And that's kind of how I got my, cut my teeth on street riding at least. So
That's awesome.
that's really,
That's awesome,
those are
man.
really how it began with
I gotta,
us, with me and others.
man, that's gotta be unbelievable memories for you because it's like my dad, I didn't grow up with motorcycles. I kind of picked it up through friends in the neighborhood as a kid. But to
Yeah,
have you like my son is lucky because he's grown up in my shop and he's been on the back of the bike since he was 3, 4 years old. So but
that's awesome. Yeah.
that's gotta be cool to see your dad pulling around and coming in on the bike. I don't know, man. That's just awesome in my opinion. So your mom obviously liked the bad boys.
Yeah. Yes, he did. And, it's funny because growing up in they grew up in Boston, Massachusetts, and my father grew up in a suburb, a pretty tight suburb called West Roxbury and outside of Boston,
Mhm.
Boston as they called it. And my mother lived further west out in the country in a little town called, I think it was Medfield. And so, yeah, this city boy would ride his Triumph out there to the country,
Nice.
and pull up in
Hmm.
their little gravel driveway on that Triumph, and here's this bad city boy, and she'd hop on the back, and they'd take off and go ride, little country girl. It was like one of
Too
those,
cool, man. Too cool.
something from the movies, the bad boy picking up the sweet little country girl, and and them taking off
That's
together into
That's
the
awesome.
funny.
sunset. So they definitely lived it. Yeah, they
That's
lived,
hysterical.
didn't it? Yeah. So
Uh, so how do you go from being a history teacher to a motorcycle enthusiast? I guess you were always an enthusiast, but where can you tell us about that shift going from sharing with the listeners how you went from a history teacher into a motorcycle enthusiast and rider and
I
pursued that
actually,
passion?
yeah, yeah. I actually went through a number of years where I didn't ride motorcycles. When I went off, you know, got my license and then eventually went off to college and grad school and, got married. I didn't own a motorcycle for a lot of years. This other priorities, that was my childhood, but other priorities kind of took over for a
Hmm.
bunch of years. And, being a homeowner and then a father with two daughters, I guess it was really about probably,
Oh yeah.
I want to say it was 1996 or 97. I was driving home from work one day and, on the side of the road, I still remember it. There was a jet black with chrome pipes. It was I don't know what year it was. It was um, a Honda, um, V4 Magna or something like that.
The
And
Magnus, yeah. Yeah.
yeah, the Magna, and just sitting there with a for sale sign at the end of this driveway. And something just stirred inside of me. I would stop on the way home and just go gawk at this piece of motorcycle art, I considered it, in this guy's driveway, thinking of ways, you know, one, could I come up with the money? Two, could I convince my wife to let me have the money to buy this? And, and then all of a sudden one
Mhm.
day it was gone. It sold. I lingered and waited too long,
Ah,
but the beast had been stirred. You know what I mean? And I wanted a
yeah.
motorcycle. I wanted to ride again. And so it was, I guess it was 1997. I had a, come to Jesus meeting with my wife about it, so to speak, and just going over all the ins and outs and whys and why nots. And she finally acquiesced and agreed to let me buy one. And I found
Nice.
a 1993 Suzuki VS 800 Intruder that was this midnight metallic blue, and it was gorgeous. And I bought it and took a motorcycle safety course to kind of get some, more modern, updated official street skills. Because when you learn from your dad, it's great when you're a teenager and learning how to ride dirt bike, but actually riding on the street, I understood required some skills. So I taught
Yeah.
went through those courses. And by 1998, I had, had that bike, had a course or two, and then an experienced rider course I took with that bike just to get some more skills about a year later. And then I was off and running in the motorcycling world. And I actually,
Nice.
I'll have to correct about the school teacher thing. I've done that. I did that for about 6 or 7 years just here in the last few years. I spent
Okay.
most of my career I spent in vocational ministry. I actually was a youth education pastor, for teenagers in churches and stuff, and then
That's awesome.
wrote education materials and
Cool.
taught education materials for, set up education programs for children's ministries, elementary age ministries in church. Did that for most of my career. And yet, I was the biker pastor at every church I served at. I was, my girls
Good.
grew up on the back of my motorcycles on that Suzuki, on a Yamaha Royal Star Tour Classic that I had for a lot of years, a big land yacht of a water buffalo motorcycle. And so,
Yeah.
I had that for a number of years. And so my girls really grew up even more so than because I didn't ride with my dad on the back of one of his Triumphs a lot, but my girls regularly rode with me, did road trips with me. Both of them, when they graduated high school, one of them in 2008, the other one in 2010, they didn't want to go to Daytona or on a cruise or to Fort Lauderdale or Panama City, something like that. They wanted to go on a road trip with their dad. So I did 4 and 5 day road trips,
Yeah.
on a motorcycle with
Awesome.
both of my girls. So, they
Where,
grew
where,
up
where did
biking.
you go?
Wow.
Hey, living where you live, where did you go? Did you go up into the Blue Ridge? Did you take them up into the mountains?
I did. Yeah. We'd head north into the
The
mountains.
best,
Yeah.
the
And,
best.
riding the Cherahela Skyway, took
Oh
Ansley, my
yeah.
oldest daughter, on the tail of the dragon. I didn't do that one with Kelsey, my younger one. But up the Blue Ridge Parkway several days and back. And then with Kelsey,
So
I took her
awesome.
up into Tennessee across Lookout Mountain, and then down into, the northeastern corner of Alabama toward Huntsville. A lot of beautiful riding nobody ever talks about. And,
That's
so
right.
so yeah,
Good.
they got to make memories on the back of their dad's bike for sure.
Hey, so
So,
let me ask.
How old were
Oh,
they when they
sorry.
started? So when you first got the Suzuki and got back into it, how old were the kiddos then?
let's see, 1997. I guess
Ballpark. I'm just curious, trying to
Ansley,
get
let's
the
see,
picture.
Ansley would have been about 8, the oldest one, and then
Okay.
Kelsey
So still
about
pretty
20,
little.
yeah,
Yeah.
would have been 6. So that because they're right around 2 years apart. And, when they were that little, I didn't really ride Kelsey as much until
Yeah.
she got a little bit bigger. When I rode Ansley,
Hmm.
starting soon thereafter, and then when we moved to another part of the state, little northeast of Atlanta toward Athens, and, they were both in middle school
Hmm.
and high school, they rode regularly with me. I mean, they were like the coolest kids in the school. I'd ride one to school in the morning and drop
Yeah.
her off, and then pick up the other one after school on it just to take turns and everything with them, or vice versa. And, so yeah, you know,
That's
You
cool.
you know how
yeah,
awesome
they
that
made
is that
made a lot of
that
memories together.
they
Yeah.
enjoy. Yeah, you know how awesome it is
Yeah.
that they enjoy riding with their dad. I mean, that is things that you can't really describe to anybody because a lot of kids don't really like to pick up anything that their parents are doing. So for
Yeah.
something like that, that's going to be cool. I did want to ask you this. Um, the time you took off from riding, was your pops still riding? Was he still pretty active on the bike?
He wasn't either. He actually, after it seems like he sold both of the Triumphs and all the parts to one guy, and it was like when I was in college. He just realized he wasn't riding it a whole lot, either one of them a whole lot anymore, and he had just kinda lost interest a little bit himself. And, he was fixing up,
Hmm.
him and one of his brothers, one of my uncles that lived nearby, they were fixing up dune buggies and making, woods buggies. And,
Nice.
he had other projects he was working on. I mean, we got into the early Datsun Z cars, 240s, 260s, and 280s for a while, and so he was
Sweet.
always working on something in the garage. So I wanna say it was probably 1982 or '83 '84 maybe, he sold all of his he sold his motorcycles and all the parts. So he went through a bunch of years where he wasn't riding anymore either. I got back on before he did. I got back on, like I say, in 97 or 98. And he got back on himself. I want to say it was like 2005. He picked up a
Okay.
old beater Yamaha 550 that a friend of mine had gotten a hold of for next to nothing and asked my dad if he'd help him get it running. And he did. And my dad ended up buying it from him for like $500. So he was back on a bike again,
Hmm.
but it was about it
That's
was about
cool. That's
2004,
cool.
2005, that,
Okay.
so it's almost from
So
like
very, very, very,
1984 to
very
about,
close.
we spent 10 years, a good 10 years riding together before his health started to fail. And by 2018, he decided it was time. He had he bought a couple of Harleys. He didn't get back on a Triumph. I always tried to nudge him to get back on the bike of his heritage. But he bought a Triumph Super Glide, and then he traded that up and got on a Heritage Classic, 2003 100-year
Classic.
anniversary.
Yeah.
And
The
him and my
anniversary.
mother just
Nice.
rode the snot out of that thing. They rode all over the South with
Nice.
that. Did a number of road
So
trips with
awesome.
him. And so a good 10 years there where father and son were actually getting to ride together. We did it. We did a lot, made a
Yeah,
lot of
we're
miles.
gonna get
bought
in.
a-
We're definitely gonna
That's
get
cool.
into a lot of that stuff we got coming up with some things. But hey, when did you start? Like, you transitioned from the ministry part where you would doing the education and then the school teaching part. When did you become? When did you start with the writing? How did you get into that part of your life? Because you went really from something more structured, a career as far as, school teacher every day, kind of almost to something completely different.
That's a great question. I actually, when I went to college, I majored in journalism. So, I've been writing off and on
Yeah.
ever since I was a kid. I used to love to write just imaginative short stories and things like that. Learned how to write some poetry at one time. But so I majored in journalism just because I had a love for writing and I figured I could use that in a lot of different areas of life, ministry, education, whatever. And, but during the years that I was serving, in vocational ministry, I was writing, you know, teaching materials for those ages that I was working with. So I was cutting my teeth a lot on that. And I started writing articles for, Christian education publications. Throughout the 2000s, mainly I think the first one I ever had published was like
Hmm.
2004, and started writing just, for professional public education publications like that. And then, I guess it was probably about 2011 or 2012. I subscribed to Cycle World magazine back when they were in print, and Motorcyclist magazine. I was a big fan of those magazines. And on a whim, I decided to write a short article for a column that used to be in Motorcyclist magazine toward the back of their magazine called Me and My Bike. And where they would take readers' submissions, just little short stories and a photo or two of their motorcycle. And I just wrote up something on that Royal Star that I had, how I'd gotten in a wreck had been hit by a car with my Suzuki. I thought it would take me out of
Wow.
motorcycling, but
Hmm.
within a year I was back riding and, had this other bike, this Yamaha Royal Star that took me all over the United States. And I sent that into them, not expecting to hear from them. And lo and behold, you know, one of their assistant editors or editors at large, a guy named Aaron Frank, emailed me back and said, "We like your story. We're going to publish it. So, and you're a pretty good writer. Why don't you send us stuff from time to time? We'll see if we can publish for you."
Wow.
And suddenly this magazine that I used to
That's amazing.
love to read their columnists and stuff, they were asking me for content. And I became a contributor to Motorcyclist, and then they recommended me to Cycle World, and I started writing for them, you know, and on into the early 20, like I think that was like 2012,
That's wild.
2013, 2014. Started writing for. So I spent several years contributing to Motorcyclist and Cycle World, and Motorcycle Classics magazine, the AMA publication, American Motorcyclist, and it just kind of took off, and
That's
Yeah.
this
amazing.
thing that I was kind of so I was still working in the ministry, but I left this church I was at. Had the opportunity to jump in with this new church planting group that were starting churches and coffee houses, which I thought was a pretty cool concept. I like coffee, so why not? And did that for some years. And then this school had offered me that I knew some people had offered me this opportunity to teach, world history and U.S. history. And I've always been a history nerd, so
Mm.
I was like, "Oh my gosh, I've never done that. I'll go try that." And all the while, though, I was writing for these magazines and writing for my personal blogs and things like that, and saving a lot of this content. Wrote my first book in 2013, Road Dirt: The Musings and Ramblings of a Biker Preacher, an Amazon book. And I started having I being in the motorcycling space and starting to write for a lot of these publications, I was meeting other writers and other photographers at press launches and things like that, getting to meet a lot of these people at events, and started
Yeah.
networking with some of them, exchanging phone numbers and emails. And I had a couple of guys that were friends of mine that kept nudging me, man, at some point, print's going to die. You need to launch Road Dirt. You're practically your own brand,
Hmm.
because of the book. And also I wrote a column
Hmm.
for some regional publications that my column was, I got to become a columnist, just like I used to read in other publications. And my column was called Road Dirt with Rob
So
Brooks.
cool.
And, that eventually parlayed into us launching Road Dirt Motorcycle Media at the beginning of 2019. About the time that
Yeah.
motorcyclists and Cycle World and other ones they weren't accepting contributors in, stories and everything anymore, because they were about to be bought out and eventually, going to go under as far as print publications, which they all have. And
Right, right.
so
And
next
and
thing you,
all really because of COVID, right?
I don't, I think that may have had something to do with it, but it seems like the motorcycle print industry was going through a major upheaval in the digital space anyway,
Mm.
because more and more, websites and people going online and searching content, reading content, ingesting video and written content online. A lot of those magazines just started seeing their subscriberships just dwindle and,
Yeah.
practically disappear.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And COVID may have sped that up. I don't know, but it certainly was true that by the time you get out the other side, they're all gone, and they're just
Yeah.
digital or social media presences. Well,
Yeah.
I miss the hard copies, man. I used to enjoy receiving my American
yeah, me too.
Iron and Cycle World, and I
Oh
mean I
gosh,
look
yeah.
forward to sitting back and reading it. It's so much better than holding this piece of crap,
It's true.
destroying your
Yeah,
eyes with it. And I guess we're old school, man. So
we
the new
are. I still like the
generation likes the new
magazine,
stuff.
but Road Dirt's not
Me
in
too.
print. It would have cost us an exorbitant amount to try to launch
Oh
a
yeah,
print
yeah, yeah, yeah.
publication. We just decided, let's start, with a main website. We call it our e-magazine, and a YouTube channel, and a bunch of social media pages and groups to kind of point to those things. And it's just kind of worked well
Hmm.
for
Yeah.
us. So yeah.
Yeah. So in your years as a columnist and contributing to different publications, your storytelling seems to be a real gift of yours. And I'm curious if there are specific topics that you really enjoy writing about or subtopics. And also, what is your approach in that? What's your methodology behind your storytelling as well?
Storytelling really is kind of we've kind of created a hashtag here with Road Dirt called hashtag Ride Life. What it's like to ride motorcycles, what it's like to be a part of the motorcycling community, uh, the sensations and feel of a motorcycle out on the open road, out in the environment, not stuck inside a cage like an automobile. Um, how it
Mhm.
not only how it feels, but how it makes you feel inside. And so we that's kind of the whole definition of hashtag Ride Life. And that's really kind of our approach. Motorcycling, as you guys know, is not only has publications gone under, but motorcycling in general in America in the last couple of generations has really dwindled. Motorcycle sales are and ownership and registrations year to year, according to NTSA, are really down like 60 something percent over previous generations. You and I, Sergey, grew up with motorcycles in our garage, and our kids are raising their kids now without motorcycles. They're raising them with devices in their hands, not ones that they're riding. And
I know.
so we try to tell stories. We try to tell even if we're covering like a motorcycle review, we're reviewing a bike. We have relationships with a lot of brands, and they give us
Mhm.
bikes to review. We try to, anybody can do what I call a specs and deets article, specifications, details, dyno charts. We'd rather tell the story of what this bike
Mhm.
feels like when you're out on the open road, how it makes you feel when you're out on the open road. Some fun stories of people we encounter or things that happen while we're out on that bike and stuff like that. We just, we're not trying to compete with the legacy brands, Motorcyclists and Cycle World and Ultimate Motorcycling, who are all digital now. None of them are print. Most of them aren't print anymore, but they're still out there. We're just finding our little niche in motorcycling of people that love motorcycling and love a good story about it. And those are what we're trying to do. It's kind of our,
Yeah.
I
I
guess that's
love I
kind of our,
love what you guys are doing. I love what you guys are doing,
story.
man.
Thank you.
Because you mix so much of different. It's almost like what we're trying to do here. You bring in all genres of motorcycles and everybody who loves different motorcycles together, so everybody kind of gets educated a little bit about everything. So you're not just
Mhm.
stuck on one motorcycle or one brand. So I love the articles, man. We really had a awesome job. Just keep that up. Hey,
Thank
wanted to
you. Yeah,
ask
we
you a
appreciate
little bit. I want to ask you a little bit going back to your dad. When you and your dad started writing together, kind of like, because one of the great articles you did document that you did write was documenting the trip with your dad, and you guys doing some trips together and all that stuff. Could you share some maybe memorable adventures and rides that kind of left an impression on you? Something that is true and dear to your heart.
with my dad.
Yeah.
I remember a trip that he and I made, just the two of us, and it was I guess about a 4 or 5 day trip up into, North Georgia, East Tennessee, North Carolina, part of South Carolina, and he was on his Harley Davidson Heritage Classic, and I had my Yamaha Royal Star. And what was fun about that one was when him and I, for the first time, I'd been on it before, but he never had. When we got on the US one Highway 129, the tail of the dragon, 318 curves in 11
Mhm.
miles, and how tight and curvy that was, you know. And I think if I remember, I had him out in front of me so he could go at his pace and things like that. And we got to an overlook about in the middle where there's a break and you can overlook the mountains on one side and, the dam and the reservoir down in the valley on the other side. We got off the bike, and pulled the helmets off. And I said, Dad, you okay? How you feeling? And he says, Whoo, Rob, that was a rush. And, and I just remember getting a laugh out of that. And I said, well, we're not done yet. We got to go down the other side. And then we got down the other side to the reservoir where you kind of run out and running along this reservoir in the valley. We pulled over and he wanted to go back through it. So, we hopped on, turned around and hauled butt back through that thing. And I just remember, more than anything that he said, but just getting back out going back the way we came, back into the, Deals Gap side where the store and the tree of shame and everything is there. And just seeing, this exuberance in his face, like, I rode the dragon, I rode the dragon, man. How thrilled he was. And it was a thrill to me. You get to, here's the guy that grew up on motorcycles and first exposed us to it. And for me to get to expose him to something was a thrill beyond measure. Seeing the, thrill in his
I
eyes and the
bet.
rush, kind of just the adrenaline rush still with him that he had run the dragon and he was proud of himself. And I was proud of that.
and
So
that's
a
got
big
to be
one.
so cool. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure, and it's got to be so cool. I mean, the writing part is incredible, but I think you both have families and you're grown men, and life has taken place, right? And here's this
Mhm.
moment in time in your life that you truly just get to park the bikes at night, go out, grab some dinner, have a couple of cold beers together, and just, I mean, just that moment alone is gonna be insane because you're not doing it at his house, you're not doing it at your house, the families aren't all together, it's just the two of you, and that
Yeah.
whole feeling, it's pretty undescribable. So that must have been amazing, man.
It really is, what that beautiful transition where he'll always be your father, I'll always be his son, and yet we became best friends. Not just on that, but just in adulthood and riding together and wrenching together. He'd come over and help me
Yeah,
work
that's
on
amazing.
bikes and things like that. We had that shared, passion for motorcycles, in our lives. And my dad was my best friend, and getting to share that
Awesome.
with him for a lot of years and a lot of miles, a lot of memories. I just, I cherish to my grave.
Right. Well, I'm just gonna make a quick plug. My son is 17 and a half, and this past weekend, he got his motorcycle endorsement. He passed his test, so
Good
I'm
for him.
hoping to build what you guys did with him
Yeah.
as he gets older. So that's why
There
it,
you
it,
go,
it
man.
touches me to hear your story, man. I think it's just awesome.
Well, tell him I'm proud of him, even though he doesn't know me.
All right,
So,
I will.
and
I will
it's
for
funny
sure.
because both of my girls, I used to prod them from time to time. Do you want to learn how to ride a motorcycle? Like, yeah, I can take you through a motorcycle safe. They never wanted to learn how to ride, either one of them. They were just content to hang on to
Mm.
back with dad, and snap their
Oh,
pictures and their
uh,
selfies while they were on the back of dad's bike. They never really wanted to ride on
yeah.
their own. I was okay with that. It was fun. So I'm glad
Oh
your son's
man, I'm sure.
actually throttle around on his
That's
own. That's
cool.
good. Yeah.
That's good. Yep.
So, Rob, I wanted to hear a little bit about your book, how you came up with the title, and the title itself kind of there's a little bit of a storytelling element to the title itself. Tell us a little bit about the book and what it's about and why we should definitely read it.
He's talking about, I think, the
There's
musings and the
really two of them.
rumblings.
I wrote the first one, Road. It's called
The first
Road
one.
Dirt, subtitled "The Musings and Ramblings of a Biker Preacher." And I'm trying to think back as to the
Yep.
name Road Dirt, how I came up with that. Um, I really, um, I'm not really sure. I think it's almost like it came down from heaven. I just it just kind of came to me. This unique name that I'd never seen on any other publication or anything, Road Dirt. And the terminology
Yeah.
kind of had several meanings to me. Of course, we ride road bikes, we ride dirt bikes. Road dirt is also what we accumulate on our motorcycles when we ride. You got to wash your bikes periodically, and hose off the road dirt and polish them up.
Hmm.
And of course, also in the journalism world, the word dirt is, getting the inside scoop, the inside skinny on a story.
Yeah.
And telling a
Hmm.
good story. So road dirt, dirt from the road. And so it was a name that it just literally, I almost feel like the good Lord himself kind of gave it to me. "Woo, woo, woo, woo. I want you to call it Road Dirt." And I was like, yes, Lord. That's an awesome name. I love it. So I wrote for several regional publications, Born to Ride, Motorcycle Media, and others. And my columns were called Road Dirt. And I wrote the first book I wrote, Road Dirt, the Musings and Ramblings book. It just kind of became my brand, my thing. And then when we launched Road Dirt Motorcycle Media, I mean, everybody was just saying it's just a natural, man. You're the only road dirt out there.
Definitely.
So
Right, right.
after
Hmm.
10 years, my mother had been prodding me for several years. You need to write another book. You need to write another book, in her Yankee accent. And, so after 10 years, a lot has transpired in my life from 2013 to 2023. And, and I write all about it. And most of it's motorcycling. Some of it's just some personal things that, as we do life, that just changes as you age and as time
Hmm.
marches on. So by the end of 2023, I had Road Dirt 2, more musings from the ride life that I published. And, so it's out there now too. So I guess really the name Ride Light, a Road Dirt, and the hashtag Ride Light are just kind of gifts from above almost, and they're just who I am and who we are now. Me and all the
Rob,
you know
what inspired you though? What inspired you? I mean, you've done so much writing and you've done writing for others, right? So you've done the articles for other publishings, other magazines. What inspired you to write the first book? I mean, what did you just were you just putting content together in a journal and kind of put it together, or did you just one day say, you know what, I'm going to write a book? And
I think I had accumulated throughout the '90s and 2000s just a lot of personal blog entries about riding and motorcycling, road trips, some stories that had published for Motorcyclist, Cycle World, AMA, things like that. And I just had a lot. I just had all these, and I was like, you know, what am I going to do with all this? I can put them on a little blog, but there's not a lot of people out there that are going to read those. I
Mhm.
think on Amazon, I'm not sure how I found out about their self-publishing module. It's called Kindle Direct Publishing
Mhm.
now, but it used to be Create Space,
Yep.
self-publishing, where you don't really have to pay a book company a whole bunch of money for them to, print the books, have them in a warehouse, and then
Mhm.
and then market them and sell them. It's kind of a print on demand model. And I think
Yep.
probably back then, my mother probably nudged me also because she's always been a big supporter of my writing, as well as my own wife, and just said, you ought to, you got enough stuff. You ought to put it together into a book. So I spent most of
right.
2013 just like, all right, through this Amazon, you know, print on demand module, I kind of fell into it. And really, I guess the
Mhm.
impetus behind it was just trying to find a place where I'd love to just see my own materials in a book that I could preserve for myself, for my children, my grandchildren, and anybody else that is a
That's
like-minded
cool.
fool as me that loves to read this stuff.
Mhm.
And
The legacy, that's
that's
cool.
really how it began, I guess.
That's cool, man. That's
It kind of
cool. Hey,
it kind of just off from there,
uh,
yeah.
yeah, obviously, motorcycling is, we're a community, right? Because we share
Yes.
a common interest, and
We
it's
do.
it's the few. It's not all. So it's the few that do this.
Mhm.
I want to ask you kind of like your involvement in the media aspect of the motorcycle industry, writing articles, going out to visiting motorcycle manufacturers, dealers, new models, all this stuff. Um,
Mhm.
what's your perception of the community, the connection of people that you meet that you've never met before? Just so people can understand what this is all about. It's the people that love this stuff. Like in your journeys of going to different places, traveling everywhere. What have you found as far as the motorcycle community itself?
That there's a common bond that motorcycling is, the motorcycling community, really anywhere you go in the world, but definitely across, the United States, wherever you go, even though it's a small niche community, regardless of, um, racial differences, cultural differences, socioeconomic differences, political differences, when we all hop on a bike, we've got this common shared passion that it's almost like the other things don't matter. We're experiencing
Mhm.
this machine with each other out in the environment together that nobody is willing and daring enough to do. And that, that, it's almost like motorcycling is, it just kind of spans the whole, spectrum of people. It's almost spiritual, in a sense. The bond that you can show up at a rally or a Moto America race or, you know, wherever where other motorcyclists are. And it doesn't matter the ways that you're different from each other outside of motorcycling. You have helmets, you got gloves, you got jackets, and you got this bike, and you're going to have a conversation. Age differences don't matter. It's just, a young guy on a Yamaha R6 will enjoy talking to some old fart on an Indian Scout Rogue as much as anybody. They'll just, they can still enjoy each other because of this thing called motorcycling. And
Yeah.
it's the machine, but it's also the experience that we share together. If you ride, And
Right.
Mhm.
And
is
you
that
show it in your work, man.
yeah, I hope so.
You
We
really
really
do.
want to.
You show it in your writing, and Ben and I were talking about that earlier. Just like just reading your articles and things. There's a difference in your writing, I think, compared to other guys that we've talked to or articles we've read. There's a lot of passion in what you write, and it really comes down from just loving this industry and loving what you're doing. And you can see it, man. It's just awesome. So I wanted to ask you that question just for the fact that you know a, everywhere is different, and I think a lot of people you know, and I see this with friends, like you know how bikers drive by each other, right? You always stick your hand out and just kind of put it down, right? Wave. It's a
Yeah.
appreciation. But what drives me crazy is like some guys who ride Harleys won't wave to anybody unless they're that makes no sense to me. It's like, dude,
I
this
don't
is a
see that a
shared
lot
passion.
too.
It's a common.
Yeah.
eh,
Mhm.
Here, it's in Florida for some reason. I don't know. I see it. There's too much
Yeah.
ego sometimes in this stuff. So
Yeah. I'm thankful that those everywhere I've been across the US as well as a little bit in Florida, there's a little bit of that, but most of the time, that I've been by and been with Harley riders or, BMW riders or whatever, you know, we all acknowledge each other for the most part.
yeah,
Those that
yeah, for
don't,
sure.
that's their little
That's
problem,
cool.
you know. And
I
and you
I
know
Yeah.
what's
wave
funny
I
about
wave to everybody, man.
Amen.
the thing that we've been able to do at Road Dirt too is that we've been doing it long enough now where we've attracted what our guy, one of our editors named Ted Edwards, he calls like-minded fools. We've attracted a number of other
Mhm.
writers and photographers like Neil Bailey,
Yeah.
Mark Zweig up in Kentucky, guy named Ken Hawkeye Glassman up in Chicago, Joshua Plaka in Southern California, and a number of others that are guys, that used to write for other publications that are gone now, that passionately love motorcycling and still want an outlet to tell those stories to whoever is willing to read them and follow
Mhm.
along. So we've got a whole group of contributors now that just love motorcycle. It's more than just some people, if you're a golfer, it's a hobby. You go play golf once in a while. If
Right.
you're a motorcyclist, most motorcyclists, it's more than a hobby. It's their life. It's their identity. And the community is their identity. It's their dearest and deepest friends. So it's more than just a hobby. It's a lifestyle. It's a passion. It's a way of
Right.
life for us,
Yeah,
really.
for sure.
So yeah, I'm rambling. I'm sorry.
So
No,
no,
it's
you're not
good,
at
man.
all.
I love it.
It's so before the next important question, important topic, I wanted to mention one of my favorite articles of yours. It's it's kind of in tune with the guys who are real motorcycle community guys, and then the folks who are more weekend warriors. But the anatomy of a squid.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
I was
guys.
gonna
Yeah,
share
we
the
wrote
link.
that a few years ago. The anatomy of a squid.
That
Yeah,
was awesome.
yeah. The I'm gonna share that link in the description for YouTube and anywhere else anybody's
Yeah,
watching
man.
this.
You got
But
It
to
was
read
just a
that
that.
bit sarcastic.
that's
Yeah.
oh my
But it was funny
gosh,
as
that was
hell.
hysterical.
It
So
was.
all right, so on that note, now in more important things, wanted you to talk about the 127 Legacy Foundation and the impact that it's made, and what your goals and vision is still, currently for that.
127 Legacy Foundation was really it's an overseas orphanage foundation that specifically sponsors children's homes, orphanages, a women's shelter, a medical clinic we helped build a few years ago in the across the Indonesian islands. Um, I'm not the founder of it. I'm the executive director. In other words, I basically helped the founder and president of it, who is a guy named Dr. Benjamin Abraham.
Mhm.
With a name like that, you'd think he'd be Jewish, but he's actually
Yeah.
Chinese, Indonesian, Christian. Yeah, originally his family's from
Really?
China.
Wow.
They
Wow.
migrated in the pre and post World War II days to Indonesia, which a lot of Chinese did. And he grew up there, and his father and his family became, um, Christians in a largely Muslim world, largely Muslim country there. And he eventually came to the United States to study and practice medicine and married a gal and had kids and never left. So, but he's always had a lot of his family still lives back in Indonesia. So he had this burden a number of years ago, to just go back and start a ministry here that he would go back to Indonesia, his homeland, and help sponsor,
Sweet.
projects there, orphanages and things like that. And he launched it in
Amazing.
I want to say 2012, and then in early to mid 2013, he got it registered in the state of Georgia, registered with the federal government as a nonprofit, and became legal and everything.
Mhm.
And he asked me, because my wife worked for him for years. We always attended the same churches together. Our families, our kids grew up together and everything. And well, my wife, she
Mhm.
still works for him to this day. And he asked me in 2013, he says, "I've started this foundation. Would you be my executive director of it?" And I remember I told him, I said, "Doc,
Right off the bat.
never done
Wow.
anything like that before." And he says, "Well, neither have I. We'll figure it out together." And I was like, "Well, it's hard to
Oh,
argue with
man.
that." So, you know, here we are
Can't argue with
13
that.
years
Yeah.
later. I'm still doing it with him. We sponsor, like I say, several orphanages over there, a women's shelter, a
Wow.
medical clinic, some street ministries in the capital city of Jakarta. We partner with a number of churches over there that
Wow.
one of which his father planted, and he grew up in downtown Jakarta. And we take teams over
Wow.
there every year. We didn't for a few years because of COVID, but we're back taking teams over, usually in late June, early July, for about 12 to 14 days. 'Cause it takes like two
Uh-huh.
days to get over there and 2 days to get back. It's crazy. I tell folks, when you go from, you know,
Jeez.
Eastern United States, from Georgia, Florida area to Indonesia, you can't go any farther away from Georgia without turning back toward home. And it's a long ways away.
Huh. Wow.
But
Long
but
ways.
we're
Yep.
getting ready. We'll be taking a team of about 14 over there with us in late June, early July, just doing work at the orphanages that we sponsor, doing painting jobs, hanging ceiling fans, spending time with the kids and
Mhm.
helping them do community service and stuff like that. So it's a really cool thing. You can find us at 127legacy.org. Yeah, ORG. And that's
All
kind of
right.
a cool thing.
We'll
And
I
put
then
that
just
up in the
so
listings.
it's a cool thing I get to do a little
when
bit
you
on my
organize
own.
those
Or
teams,
yeah.
yeah,
So
when you organize that team or currently while you're organizing it, is that done through your church or is that a different outreach?
um the church that Dr. Ben attends, they help promote it because they have a big missions ministry there. We promote it on the website, we have a Facebook page, an Instagram account. We promote it across there. And also people that have just been on trips with us in the past, it's kind of word of mouth. We've got a whole MailChimp email that we send out
That's cool.
dates for the new year, or if we're doing like in every fall, we do a big dinner and auction fundraiser. So we use a lot of,
Cool.
just the media outlets to try to get the word out, as well as word of mouth for, you know, groups and people that want to get involved, to say, "Hey, we've heard about such and such a trip coming up. Can we go with you? Can we send a couple of people?" Things like
Mhm.
that. So it's kind of
That's
grown
cool.
organically over the last 10, 11 years, as far as getting the word out about upcoming trips or big events we're doing stateside. So yeah, it's fun. I haven't been over in a
Mhm.
few years. This one here is going to be my first time getting to go back over in like 4 years. So I'm kind of excited
Wow.
to get back. I'm not excited
Yeah.
about the flights over and back, but I'm excited about being in
Yeah,
country
it's
with our
tough.
people there again, because I miss it. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So if I wanted to go, I would cover my airfare and then is it like a hostel sort of situation where you stay or what does that look like for
Um, I
any
think right
potential
now
people
this
out
year
there that might be interested?
just we're trying to hold the cost per individual to $2,600, and we help people. There are ways you can fundraise, through letters to friends and acquaintances and stuff like that
Cool.
to raise funds for it. And $2,600 it'll cover all the airfare coming and going, the in-country airfare
Well,
between, Sumatra, the island of Java, the island of Timor, where we have different, we've got different works we do on different islands, and you have to fly between them, obviously. And it covers all the hotels we
Yeah.
stay at, all the lodging, and covers all the meals also. So pretty much
Wow.
for $2,600,
wow,
people just
wow,
bring spending money.
pretty cool.
And it's mainly because Dr. Ben
Yeah.
has got
That's impressive.
contacts in travel. He's able to find good deals and
Oh, yeah.
with travel agencies that help us
Nice.
out, and, and they find him the sweet deals on airfare, and in country, the people over there take care
Cool.
of finding us lodging that's affordable and getting meals together, plans together for us and things like that. So pretty much you just come with spending money. And we have
That's
some
awesome.
days there in downtown Jakarta where, we let people we turn them loose and let them just shop, got to come home with some trinkets and
Nice.
stuff.
That's
But
cool.
fun part is
Yeah.
really
You're right.
I've actually got a
Souvenirs for the
story
kids.
about it on roaddirt.tv, motorcycles in Indonesia. And because I've gotten to ride over there a time or two. I don't have an international license, so I really can't get out on the open roads. But
We'll have to
what's
link to
interesting
that.
over there is motorcycles. You don't see anything really over like hardly ever see anything over like a 250cc bike. They're all
Right,
little small
right.
motorcycles,
Mhm.
scooters, mopeds. And if you're on a 250,
Yep.
man, that's a Harley over there practically. You're riding the big, you're
I know.
riding big
We
things.
had we had Alex Zurcher on. He's the president of Vintage Rides, and what they do is basically it's tours. Are you familiar with them? And they do tours
I
all
think
over
so.
the
Yeah.
world in India, he said the same thing. It's like 350s, like 500 there, 500cc bike is considered like a full size big boy.
Yeah.
So they're
Yeah.
between. He said they're between like 250 and 350. That's what you will see everywhere.
Yeah. Especially in Southeast Asia, in India
So
and places like that. Yeah. Small
so
displacement
Mhm.
bikes.
Rob, let me ask you this, man. As a founder, editor, executive director, not only with Road Dirt, but also the 127 Legacy Foundation, man. How are you balancing everything in regards to one is you've got obviously a group of people that you manage with the Road Dirt crew. So you got you guys and gals there. And then this, how are you balancing everything out, man? Because you got a lot on your plate.
Oh gosh. It's a juggling act. I mean, I've got calendars back here. I'm always writing stuff in my calendars, and Um, I I just I'm not very organized by nature. I'm detail oriented, but I'm not very organized by nature. So I really every day, every week, every month, I pretty much have to almost plan out, everything we're going to write, everything we're going to publish, everything I need to do for
Mhm.
127 Legacy. A lot of times plans change, so it's a weekly thing. Um, and you
Mhm.
guys know this because this is your life as well. That there's always more stuff to do than there is minutes in the day, and
Oh, yeah.
so it's you spend a lot of time really having to triage. You know what are the urgents today? What are the essentials? Not so much the urgents, but what are the essentials? There may be other things barking at you and screaming for your attention,
Right.
but what are the essentials? What are the importance that have got to get done today? That have got to get done Wednesday? That have got to get done Friday, for instance, and then everything else you can just kind of
Yep.
you know fill in from there. So it's a juggling act.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
it
Your
is.
top 3 for the day or
What
whatever.
about your crew? I mean, like, have you seen you've had pretty stable group of guys that have been with you for a while, and I mean, as far as communication, how you guys are setting everything up, because I mean that's a lot to do. You've got the whole country basically to cover for almost everything. So, how does that work? Like with Road Dirt, like how does a person get an assignment? Who goes where? Like how do you manage that as the founder?
Um, the guys that contribute, um, most of them, they're almost like all editors at large. And by definition, an editor at large is somebody that comes up with their own ideas and their own content, and they pitch it to me. And, hey, I'm thinking
Mhm.
about this story. I'm working on this. What do you think? And so there's several of the guys that are regular columnists that write something every month. that publishes on a certain date every month. You know, Neil Bailey is one of those. A guy named Mark Zweig out of Kentucky is a regular contributor. Ken Glassman is becoming a regular contributor, and one or two others. Richard Warsham with Janus Motorcycles up in Goshen, Indiana.
Janice.
Yeah, he's sharing stories with us now. We're sharing content with each other.
Cool.
And on a monthly basis, he's writing a regular series, and so and it's really coming down to getting those things scheduled. And then periodically I'll shoot them a reminder, hey, this is coming, this is coming up on a certain date. Is there anything you need from me, or, you know, stuff like that? And a lot of it is because they're all over the United States. A lot of it is just, regularly calling, texting, emailing, and just staying in touch with each other,
Right.
getting on Zoom calls with each other when we
Mhm.
need to, and just, you know, and a lot of these guys have gotten, it's almost really become more than, it's not really a staff. They're more, I like your word, the crew. It's more like a crew because, they call each other, they call me, we talk and chat, sometimes just bullshit with each other, just to
Nice.
chat, and I like that because it's a community of guys and gals that just, we enjoy contributing to road dirt, but we enjoy each other too, you know? And,
Right.
I
The
think that
camaraderie,
makes
yeah.
it even more special. Yeah.
You I guess you always take the good jobs to go and test ride new motorcycles? Is that
Not
the
always.
boss's
I, I,
is that
I
the
like,
boss's
I like
job?
to give those away sometimes. I like to give those away sometimes. Back a year or two ago, Yamaha did a whole new version of their MT10, their naked sport
Yeah,
bike,
that's right.
and they come out with an SP version of it. Well, they sent me the invite, but I was, oh man, Ryan Nolan, our guy up in Milwaukee, who's a semi-pro motorcycle racer as well as writer and photographer for us. I was like, oh, that I need to send Ryan to that. He will have a blast. And he did.
That's cool.
And then there's been other ones, Royal Enfield did a launch of the Super Meteor 650 down in Dallas, Texas, back in the summer.
That's a nice bike.
That's a cool bike. Yeah. And I wanted
That's
so
a
bad to
cool
go
bike.
ride it. I thought I need to send Ted Edwards. He would get an absolute kick out of doing that. So I sent him, and I try to share. I mean, some of them I'll take, but there's other ones that if I think of one of the guys would just get a blast out of it and do a great job doing a story and everything on it, I'll send them instead. I don't hoard all of them for
Hey, can
myself.
I
I
ask
love to spread the love around, share the fun.
That's awesome. Hey, let me ask you a
That's cool.
question, man, with the Janus bikes, right? Because my shop, what we were doing when we were doing the custom builds, we were doing like basically resto mods of like 48 pan heads, both kick and electric start using 80 Evo motors. So we had cubic inches on there. I love what Janus is doing. I think the bikes are kind of cool. They're different, right? What's your impression of the way they ride? Because what is it? A 350 and a 450?
It's
What, 250 and a 450?
yeah. Yeah, it's a 250 and a 450, both of them, yeah. So, it's strange because when you ride one, each one of their motorcycles are hand built. They are literally
Right.
built by hand.
Which is cool.
They pass each, not only that, but the frames, a lot of the parts,
Mhm.
are hand formed and bent, and everything is, most of those motorcycles are built by hand, either in
Nice.
Goshen, Indiana, or nearby, or other parts of the United States. I think there's elements in the motor. I think the motor right now comes from China. I think the shocks come from Australia, um, only because they're reliable, they're easy to get, and they just seem to fit well with what they're doing. But when you ride one of those things, they shift clunky, they're noisy and they vibrate.
Mhm.
You feel everything
Like a
when you're
Harley.
riding one.
Right.
It's like riding a 1938 Brough Superior or something. I mean,
Love
it
it.
looks like
Love it.
these old vintage bikes from the 1900s. And to be honest with you, they feel like it when you're riding it. And,
Nice.
you know,
Nice.
and to me that's cool. There's no ride modes. Your ride modes are right here, you know.
Yep.
Mhm.
There's no ABS
Are,
on
are
them.
are they four speeds or five?
They're 5. Even, yeah,
Five
both of them
speeds.
are, both of them are fives, if I remember right. Yeah, one down, four up. They're not six speeds. Um, you know, and they're carbureted too. They're not fuel injected. So,
I know, which
it
is
is
cool,
it is
man. That's
extremely
awesome.
old. They are so old school. And there's a nostalgic vibe when you ride one of those. If you can just put the company aside, you feel like you're riding something from about 1925 or 1935. They
I
just
love to hear
feel
that.
old.
I love to hear
Yeah.
that because if you have an old bike, then it needs to ride like an old bike with today's technology, which they got. So that's cool, man. Good to hear that because I've always
They are.
wondered. I've followed Richard. I've reached out to him a couple of times. We've talked in the past, and I'm always curious about it. And then I found out that you went down there to the factory, got a chance to check it all out, and did some riding with those guys. So that's why
Yeah.
I wanted to ask that question. So that's good to know, man.
I love their model. Yeah.
Yep.
So speaking of different bikes, what do you currently have in your garage? I know you got a nice selection. So of them, what are your favorites too?
That are my own because we've still got a couple of brand bikes here. I've got a 2017 Triumph Bonneville 900, the Street Cup version, kind of
Nice.
the cafe racer one you remember from a few
Mhm.
years ago.
Yep.
I've got
Beautiful,
one
man.
of those
Beautiful.
that's my
Yeah.
regular rider. I've got a 1978 Kawasaki KZ650 that a previous owner, it was a barn
Sweet.
find, and they rebuilt it from the ground up, him and a friend of his, and ran it for a
Nice.
few years, sold it to me. It's like a candy apple metallic red. It's gorgeous. It is a 4 into 1,
Cool.
so out the right side, a single Delkovich pipe, so it's obscenely loud. My wife won't ride it with me because it's ridiculously loud,
Dreams.
but it's fun. And then
Yeah.
I've got a 1979 Kawasaki KZ650 that I bought for just a couple
You got a kick.
$100. It was a
Nice.
junker, and I'm just kind of tinkering and fiddling with it, trying to get it running and, you know, pirating out parts off of it and stuff like that as needed. And then a little mini bike for a grandson when he gets a little older. So those are mine. Those are the four bikes
Nice.
that I have. And then we've had a Royal Enfield Scram 411 for a couple of months that they left with us. And we've still got it. It's been like
Very cool.
coming up on 6 months, a long termer that we've done a ton of stories with it. A Yamaha Tracer 9 GT Plus that's got this adaptive cruise
Cool.
control with a radar module in the front, way
Wow.
the opposite of a Janus motorcycle or
Crazy.
something like that. It's super high tech.
Yeah.
So I'll actually be taking that
That's
down to
cool, man.
Daytona, coming down for Daytona Bike Week, and Yamaha's
Killer,
extended his
man. I was
warranty
gonna
on
ask you
it.
that.
Yeah.
Hey,
Nice.
listen. If it's cool with you, man, we'd love to be able to meet you up in Daytona because we're only a couple of
Oh,
we're
heck
like
yeah.
2.5 hours south of there. So we'll chat about that after. All right,
Yeah,
man. I got to
absolutely.
ask you before we get into this. Before we get into the speed round, and we got a couple of questions left.
Speed round.
Um,
Okay.
hey, do, you've done a lot of great journeys, man. You've been to a lot of cool places. Is there one that particularly sticks out in your mind that you could tell a little bit of why it's memorable, or maybe the scenery, maybe the people, whatever the case may be? Well, what's a cool place that just it's that you love to talk about or tell stories about that you've rode to?
I would, I love year or two ago, me and a bunch of the road dirt guys came in from different parts of the country and we rode the Blue Ridge Parkway, and the Cherahela Skyway, a lot of those,
Oh yeah.
right during the peak of leaf season, you know, just
Eat.
multicolored leaves falling while we were riding was
Mountains
just
on
magic,
fire.
and that's in a
Gorgeous.
story called Appalachian Playground. We write about that. And Pacific Northwest, the Cascade Mountains are just breathtaking. I've never ridden through anything like that. Just
Beautiful.
down through Florida in places, Panhandle, Texas, into the desert mesas of New Mexico, with a dear friend of mine who passed away in the
Eat.
last year. I cherish that ride
Sorry.
as much as anything, just because of my friends gone that I rode it with now, and rode
Yeah.
across America and back
Yeah.
with
Wow.
him, at least as far as New Mexico and back. But I think for me, the the ride that kind of takes the cake, that is the first one that comes to mind, is a few years back. me and two high school childhood chums that I still ride with from time to time. We had the unique opportunity to, with MotoQuest, a touring company, motorcycle touring company, ride the entire length of the
Mhm.
Baja Peninsula from south to north.
Wow.
Um, we
Wow.
flew into
Jeez.
Cabo we flew into Cabo
That'd have
San
been nuts.
Lucas and then rode, Suzuki and BMW adventure bikes, V-Strom 650s and GS 700s, literally crisscrossing the entire peninsula from Sea of Cortez to the Pacific, back to the Sea of Cortez, across the interior, all the way. It
Wow.
took us 7 days
Wow.
just taking our time. It was like 1,700 miles, something like that, just weaving back and forth. You know, and the Baja
Awesome.
Peninsula, it doesn't get any more deep southwest than Baja. I mean, it's Mexico. Baja,
Mhm.
there's
Right.
Sur, Baja SUR, which is the southern. They're two states, in the northern and the southern portion of it. And then we got back into the United States, and but just it's like riding on another planet. The landscapes are
Yeah.
just stark, harsh, deserts and then mountains that just jut right up, just jagged peaks. Um, Riding along the Sea of Cortez is like another planet. It's just gorgeous.
That's
And then along
awesome.
the Pacific, riding along the Pacific when we weave back
Mhm.
and forth. And the people in Baja
Mhm.
are just absolutely outstanding. Everybody we met, they don't have much. They don't live on in the lap of luxury like most Americans do,
Mhm.
but they're happy with what they have and they
Mhm.
want to share it with you. And
That's
some of the
awesome.
sweetest people I've ever met on road trips have been Mexicans and Baja, the people that live in the Baja Peninsula. Absolutely loved it. And
That's
I'd go
cool.
back in a heartbeat. So
That's
that's
awesome.
probably the
Hey,
number one
listen, if
most
you ever get
Man,
if you ever get an opportunity
amazing.
to go into the Canadian glaciers, into the oh my god, it just slipped my mind. Up Vancouver area, British Columbia.
yeah. Yeah.
If you ever get a chance to ride up there, man, take it. I'm telling you, like I've done myself also a lot of multiple cross country trips, and I was fortunate enough to go up into British Columbia and kind of ride
Um,
Canada, the Canadian glaciers back. I'll tell you, British Columbia, man, holy smokes,
gorgeous.
it's like a postcard, man. You're just riding, and the roads are so beautiful out there. Considering the weather, such shit, the roads are
Right.
so beautiful, and then you're riding, and then you come in, and you really don't see any towns because it's all mountains and hills, and. But then once you take an exit and you go into like Banff or any of those areas, Medicine Hat, you come out and you kind of come out of these mountains and you're doing these full circles, and then all of a sudden it's like boom, there's a city. Like you're like, holy smoke, like where did that come from, really really cool. So if you ever have a chance, definitely take a ride up there, you'll really enjoy it.
I might get to do that in August because Ted Edwards, who lives in Wenatchee, Washington, wants me to come
Nice.
up in August, maybe for a week or so, and we'll just kind of go north up into the southern part of
Do it,
British
man.
Columbia and ride a little bit. So I may get a little bit of a chance to do that later this summer. So we're making
we'll,
those
we'll have
plans.
you on we'll have you on when you come back, man,
Oh,
and then you can
yeah,
tell the story of how awesome it is.
would love to do that. Yes, sir.
Hey, listen,
So
you got another book that you're working on and coming out with. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
yes, it actually already published it. Road Dirt 2. More musings from the ride like Road Dirt the number 2. I actually finished it. I want to say early December, so it hit
Okay,
Amazon and went live by about the middle of the
nice.
month.
So
So
it's been out a
it's been
couple of
up for
months.
yeah, been up just a couple of months right now, and live on their site. And it's really a compilation of just a lot of great road stories, people we've met along the way, events in my own life and the life of my family, the passing of my father, just a lot of, life and riding, that I think a lot of people,
Mhm.
as we enter middle age and stuff like that, I think a lot of people can identify with. And so I'm
And
very pleased.
where can I listen? Where can our
You can actually
listeners
find it out
and
on Amazon. It's
watch
on
this?
Amazon. Yeah, you can find it and the first Road Dirt book. You can find both of those out on Amazon. And because I
And what
did with
about your
both.
social media and stuff?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Say again.
like your social media stuff. How can people get a hold of you if they want? I mean, we're gonna
Okay.
link all the notes in all your social media accounts to this podcast, but just let people know how else they can get a hold of you if they need be.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. We have a Facebook page, Road Dirt TV, and then a Facebook group called Road Dirt Motorcycling. And we post a lot of content there and links to our stories and videos and just I interact with a lot of the Facebook community there. We have an X Twitter used to be called. I keep wanting to call it Twitter. We have an X page also. Road Dirt TV. An Instagram page, and now Instagram got this little thing that's like their answer to X. It's called Threads. So we're on Instagram
Threads.
and on Instagram Threads. So those are really our social media.
More? Oh my
networks.
God, not more.
Oh.
I know, another thing to keep
One
up with, right?
Instagram is enough, man. Another thing to keep
I
up with.
know. Yeah, for real.
We're
Like I need another thing
us
to
old
keep up
guys,
with,
man.
right?
We like it. Us old guys, we like it simple, man. Give us one or two. We can control them. Great, man. The more the so
Yeah, my
all
daughters
right, well,
wanted me to
listen.
get on TikTok, and I'm like, I'm not getting. I don't need another thing. This is enough for me. Hey, yeah, you need to have a TikTok. No, we don't. So
That's fine. All right, we got a little speed round. What we do to close
no,
out the
here we go.
show, and 15 questions, 2 minutes on the clock. Answer
All right,
however
short
you
answer.
want.
Here we go.
They're fun.
right.
Short, it doesn't matter. Short, long.
I'm
who
ready.
gives a
Short
shit?
answers, baby. Here we go.
Whatever feels good. All right, 2 minutes on the
All
clock.
right. Ready to go. All right, best motorcycle ever built in your opinion?
Probably that Tracer 9 GT Plus, at least that I've ridden. It'll do everything. It's amazing.
Nice. All right, here's the tricky one. Worst place. We know the best places, but what's the worst place you've ever ridden and why?
South Georgia, deep South Georgia, before the Georgia-Florida line, in July, right in the middle of bug season. It was ridiculous. Yeah, I hate it. Muggy and buggy.
Yeah, muggy and buggy.
All right, fuel injected, carbureted, or electric?
The older I get, the more I like fuel injected.
Convenient. All right, favorite cruising speed, 40 to 50, 75 to 100, 100 plus?
75 to 100, and we'll just leave it at that.
He twists the throttle back. You can tell.
That's right.
The wife's gonna be watching.
Yeah.
All right.
We'll mute that out for your wife.
Yeah, I edited it.
Favorite riding road height.
What's that?
Curvy, straightaway, trails, dirt, or scenic, or a combination for your favorite type of riding road.
I like gently curving and scenic. Best example of that is the Cherahela Skyway that crosses from, North Carolina into Tennessee. Wide sweepers, you can just really dive deep into them, and gorgeous, breathtaking scenery. I love it. Some places up in the Pacific Northwest like that too, that Ted has taken me on before. Yeah, love it. Sweepers and scenery.
Trip. All right. One law you'd change if you were president to help the motorcycle community?
Lane splitting in every state.
Nice. Favorite motorcycle movie of all time?
They prefer to call it lane filtering, but I wish every state in the union. I got to do it in California, and it is just for traffic situations and things like that. It's a game changer. I wish every state would do it, would allow it.
I don't know. Is the older I get, the more nervous I get with people being so distracted to ride between two vehicles. But
It's
I mean,
true.
if you're saying, I don't know, man. It's just I don't trust nobody on the road as it is. So you got to drive so defensive, and now to be in between these morons as they're trying to text and not even paying attention to what they're doing, it's like, man.
Yeah.
All right, next question is favorite motorcycle movie of all time?
Oh, That's an easy one. The one that came out in 2013 by Brian Carroll, Why We Ride.
Okay.
Nice.
And then, of course, On Any
My
Sunday. You gotta
favorite
name
book
On
you'd
Any Sunday.
recommend?
Yeah.
On any side.
Classic.
Yeah.
Classic. My favorite book you'd recommend everyone should read?
Obviously, the
Besides
Bible.
yours.
I believe that.
Right on.
But as far as like, you know, a good written one that everyone should read, or motorcyclists?
Either one.
Either or.
one.
Either one. I recently read a book called Endurance about the Shackleton expedition to the South Pole that failed to reach the pole and navigate across it. But how they miraculously were able to save every man on that failed expedition and get them all home. And the book
Great
is
book.
called Endurance. Yeah, it's utterly fascinating.
All right. Look that up.
Triumph
Write
of
that
human
down.
spirit.
That sounds like a good read.
Good read.
Nice. Pro tip. Go-to alcoholic beverage.
I'm a lightweight, man. In the summertime, my wife and I like just like a simple Concord Greg Manischewitz, maybe a glass of wine at night together on occasion. In the summertime, my daughters call them girly beers. I like the little, the little seltzers. They're just refreshing in the
Okay.
hot sun.
All right. Yeah.
Yeah. That's about it.
All right. Last meal ever. What would it be?
Last meal. It would, I would have to say, a big, juicy, hand-grilled, half-pound hamburger. A big
All right.
slimer of sharp, the sharp cheddar cheese on top of it.
Bartender.
Extra
that's-
sharp.
All right. How you talking? All right. If you could meet someone, past or present, who would it be?
Absolutely. But
Good
as far
answer.
as, a regular human, Mr. President, I don't really, so many,
Jesus Christ
George
is a great answer.
he's my ultimate answer,
Yeah. So, I mean, let's
It's-
just keep it at
Yeah,
that. That's a great answer.
Share a cup of coffee with my Lord and Savior. Yeah. With the Savior.
Yeah,
of the-
man,
I
for
mean,
sure.
what's better than that?
That's right.
So, a distant second might be Paul or one of his disciples, or George Washington, maybe. Yeah.
George Washington being good. That's a good answer too.
Cool. All right. If you're stranded on a desert island, what's the one album or band of Album Is Too Hard that you would bring with you?
The one band I want to, Boston's first album, their debut album, 1976. and 77.
Nice. All right.
Boston's
Nice.
debut album would have to be on continual play for him.
All right. Nice. Good choice, man.
All right. If you could swap lives with a cartoon character for a day, who would it be?
Bugs Bunny, man.
All right.
The rabbit was the coolest of cool.
He was, man. He was just cool.
Sure.
Yeah. Nothing phased him.
All right. What's the most unusual talent? No, he was always cool as a cucumber.
Yeah, man.
So, what's an unusual talent you possess that many people don't know about, or not too many people may know about?
I can wiggle my ears at will.
All right.
Oh, wow.
Get it. Hey,
Have
we'll get a
those?
zoom in on that.
Yeah.
There we go.
That's
weird.
awesome, dude. Thanks for doing it too. Thanks for doing it too, man. You rock. That's awesome.
All right, last question. If you could make a rule for a day that everybody had to follow, what would it be?
A rule for a day: treat each other with the utmost respect and deference. Not a lot
That
of
would be
respect
world-changing.
online or in person. A day of
God,
respect.
can you make?
Yeah. Amen.
Can you imagine if society just tried that for 1 week? What a difference in this world we would have. Just 1 week,
sir.
everybody just treat each other nice, say hello, good morning, good evening. How everything in life would just be so much better.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it'd be
Yes,
a
it
game
will.
changer. Rob, thanks for joining us,
Hey,
man. You
man,
made it through
That's
the speed
awesome,
round.
buddy.
You
That's
survived.
awesome.
I have absolutely
Hey,
enjoyed.
anything you wanna leave off on? Any new tidbits that you wanna talk about before we finish up?
Well, just check out my books, Road Dirt and Road Dirt 2 out on Amazon. I appreciate that. And we'd love for more people to check out the community, Road Dirt community. Check us out at roaddirt.tv. Find us on our social media pages, click in, join, and say hello. We'd love to have you join the conversation and the fellowship with us, you know. So
For
join
sure,
the
guys.
like-minded
The
motorcycle
content,
fools.
yeah, the content is
Yeah.
incredible. It's
Thank
there's enough there for every motorcycle lover from every brand and company. So just absolutely awesome. I love the vintage stuff that you guys are putting out there, man, because that's my love. My passion's in the old bike. So I love
Oh,
reading
yeah.
the stories about what you guys are coming up with. So just an awesome site, man. We wish you nothing but success with it. Hopefully this thing grows into a billion people community, man, because you deserve
Oh,
it.
that would be a dream.
And thank you
Absolutely. Thank you.
for sure, man, for sure.
Appreciate it.
So listen, let's do this. All right. If you end up going, we'll hook up in Daytona, but if you
Yeah.
end up going to the Pacific Northwest and you end up riding with your buddy out into Canada, let's hook back up and have you come back
Okay.
on the show and talk a little bit about that. Cause yeah, I think it's going to blow you away when you see this.
I think it will. Yeah. I will absolutely reach out to you.
All right. Awesome, man. Thank you again. And
Great.
Thank you, sir.
we
Yeah.
will,
Thank you,
we will
guys.
talk soon. Yep.
Yes, sir.
Thanks, Rob. Talk to you soon.
All right.